This lesson is going to be about periodic table groups, and the learning target is to be able to draw the Lewis structure of an atom and identify the ion it forms. Before we get into drawing our Lewis structures, we're going to learn how to draw an electron shell diagram. And the purpose of this is to visualize where the electrons are and how many electrons there are in each element so that we know how many valence electrons we have, which remember are the outermost electrons, the outermost ring. And those are going to be important for our Lewis structures. And so what we're talking about here with a electron dot diagram or electron shell diagram, we're going to have this right here, which is going to be our nucleus of a carbon atom to show that that's the element that we're working with. And the electron shell diagram, now I'm drawing the rings around which the electrons are in for this element, the levels that they're in. Remember, if we have our different diagrams, our electrons can take up different levels of this. Carbon has 6 electrons. And so I'm going to show these putting 2 electrons into the first level, the first ring around there, and 8 can fit into each of the next levels. Now carbon has 6 electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electrons. This would be the electron shell diagram for our carbon atom. This is where we're going to be going with this. And so to show how this works and how we do this, so the first thing that I look for, if I'm going to do this for hydrogen, which I have right here, is I look for the atomic number of this element. And in the atomic number, that's going to tell me how many electrons I'm dealing with and how many electrons this element has. Remember, the atomic number is actually how many protons this element have, an atom of this element has. But for all neutral atoms, the number of electrons equals the number of protons. And so that's also a way that I can tell how many electrons a neutral atom of this element has. And so if I was going to do this for hydrogen, I would draw my H, show that my nucleus right here. Now I would go over and start drawing my rings. Now I only have 1 electron to work with, and so in my first ring, I'm just going to put that 1 electron, and this would be the electron shell diagram for hydrogen. Now if we're going to do this with a different element, let's say we're going to do this with oxygen. So now I'm going to draw my symbol, which looks a lot like my nucleus, right? But that is oxygen in there. Now I'm going to start drawing rings around her. Now the first thing, again, remember what I do is I look for the atomic number, and oxygen's atomic number is 8. So it has 8 protons, meaning that in a neutral oxygen atom, it has 8 electrons. And so I'm going to start drawing my rings around here and filling them up. So I draw my first ring. And again, I can only put 2 electrons in this first level. So I go 1, 2, right there. So now I have 6 electrons left to use. I used up 2 of my 8. Now I need to find a place for these 6. And so again, I draw my next ring because I can't fit any more in my first one. Again, 2 in the first level. Now I can fit 8 into this level if I need to. I only have 6 electrons to work with, so I'm not going to do that. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more to go. And now I just go around in circles. And we're going to be using the same process when we do our Lewis structures. This is how I like to do these. Some would say maybe spread them out, but I like to get them paired up. So there's my 5th one, and there's my 6th one. So notice that I have 8 electrons. In this diagram, I have 2 different levels, and I can tell which ones are my valence electrons because those are my furthest outside. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 valence electrons in oxygen, okay, showing that outer ring. And so what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, take some time, and practice with the worksheet in front of you as notes. I can fill in a couple of these here for you. This one right here is hydrogen that has its 1 outer ring because it has atomic number of 1. So this is my atomic number of 2. This would be your helium. Okay, and then oxygen has the atomic number of 8, and so that one would go right into this box. Oxygen would have this electron shell diagram. So you should go through and fill this out for the rest of the elements in this worksheet from 1 all the way up to 18. So go ahead and pause the video and do that. So once you've done that, now we want to take a look at our Lewis structures because our Lewis structures are going to be the ones that are extremely important as we get into chemical bonding and what's going on in the columns of the periodic table, the different groups. Because the valence electrons, the ones shown by the Lewis structures, are the outermost electrons, and these are the ones that participate in the chemical bonding, right? So these are the ones that actually matter as far as what the element is or what the atom is going to do. If I have a bunch of electrons in lower shells, closer to the middle of the atom, but they're all full, those aren't going to affect the chemistry of the atom quite as much as the valence electrons. So our Lewis structures are actually going to be the useful structures as we get into how atoms bond with one another. And so what you need to do is look at your electron shell diagrams. Again, the electron shell diagram for hydrogen is right here. I've got my nucleus. Then I show it has one electron in there. And so here is my electron shell diagram for my hydrogen. And so when I'm drawing the Lewis structure, I'm only going to be showing these outermost electrons in the farthest outside ring. Well, for hydrogen, that's pretty simple. There's only one. And so now when I'm drawing my Lewis structures, I'm going to follow the same pattern that I did with my electron shell diagrams, except for I'm not going to have any rings around there. And so just for my hydrogen, I'm just going to show that one electron is right here. And so this is my Lewis structure for hydrogen. It shows that I have one electron, and it shows that, well, it shows I have one valence electron, and I can see it right there. I start up at the top, I work my way around clockwise. Let's see it with oxygen here. This one will be a little bit better to get a sense of what's going on here. So I draw my electron shell diagram, and you're going to be using these, the ones that you drew on the previous page for this. So my oxygen, remember I've got 8 electrons. I've got 1, 2, sure, and those ones don't really matter where you put them. And then I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm putting 2 more, 5, 6. So now I have my total of 8 electrons, and I can see that I have 6 in my outer ring. And so those are my valence electrons, and those are the ones that I want to show with my Lewis structures, because those are the ones that are going to affect the chemistry of this atom and how it bonds with other atoms. And so when I'm drawing my Lewis structure, I always start with my symbol, and I have 6 valence electrons. E minus is going to stand for electrons. Whenever you see that, it's like a shorthand version. E for electron and minus because it's a negative charge. So I have 6 electrons to place. Now I'm going to start up at the top like I did before, 1, and work my way clockwise. And I'm not going to pair up any until I get around one full turn of this symbol. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And on my second turn around, now I start pairing them up. I'm not going to put an electron right here in the middle and have them all spread out. I want to show that the two are paired up with each other. And so this will be my Lewis structure for oxygen. You can see that I have 6 valence electrons, and I can see that I have a pair and a pair, 2 paired up sets of electrons, and 2 unpaired electrons. And those unpaired electrons are going to be very important. So